I don't know how many times we've been asked if we're at war with ISIL, and I don't know how many times we've said, yes, we are at war with ISIL.
Yes or no, is America at war?
A lot of people are debating this idea of what do you call it? You call it war, don't you call it war?
We can't give them the victory of overinflating what they do.
It's not a war like Iraq.
ISIS is no existential threat to the United States of America.
No, nobody expected that. That's absolutely correct.
You know, the Cold War's been over for 20 years.
If you're wondering why the White House was caught off guard by ISIS, we may have found an answer right here in Tampa.
That is mind-boggling, to say the least.
We'll talk to Colonel James Warshak, former Deputy Director of Intelligence at CENTCOM.
That's something that we've never seen before.
Plus warnings from U.S. officials that some of our friends may be playing both sides.
It is a two-faced game. And this is particularly egregious with Saudi Arabia.
We also investigate problems with our drone program as the airstrikes ramp up with retired Colonel E.J. Otero, who helped plan the war on terror.
Folks are not getting the training that they need. They don't have enough.
And troubling messages from within our own country.
One finger to Allah at the right moment, and with a sincere heart, it will decimate nations.
Do you entice young men to join ISIS to fight against your country?
The war on ISIS, how it started, where it's going, and how it may shake up the race to the White House. This is Money, Power, and Politics.
Hello, I'm Craig Patrick. President Obama ran on ending wars. Now he's leading one with no end in sight. The president ran on change, but he did not know how much the world would change.
Is more stable than it was 5 years ago. There is a pervasive unease in our world. Today, all of our troops have left Iraq. Iraq has come perilously close to plunging back into the abyss. These new circumstances have also meant shifting away from a perpetual war footing. The only language understood by killers like this is the language of force.
When ISIS invaded Iraq, our government was blindsided. The president said ISIS was contained the morning before the massacre in Paris. Tonight, we'll dig into why, the challenges we face from enemies and allies, and where we go from here. We'll start with confusion and maddening contradictions before the war on ISIS took off.
Our objective is clear. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. The strategy that we've laid out, we don't have a strategy yet.
In Syria, the strategy had been to take out not ISIS, but a ruthless dictator, Bashar al-Assad, who gassed his own people.
That's a red line for us. I didn't set a red line.
To recap, Obama set a red line that he said he didn't set, then sought permission from Congress that he said he didn't need because he said we have to act right now or sometime later.
If we don't confront this now,
Our capacity to execute this mission is not time sensitive.
To diminish but not topple a mass murdering dictator who posed a pressing, though non-pressing threat.
It also presents a serious danger to our national security. The notion that Mr. Assad could significantly threaten the United States is just not the case.
With a tiny little attack from a military that does not deliver pinpricks.
Limited in duration and scope.
unbelievably small.
This will be more than just what some people have talked about.
A militarily significant strike.
Then he waited and launched the attack in reverse, switching the target from the mass murdering dictator trying to wipe out the terrorists to the mass murdering terrorists who are trying to wipe out the dictator after watching the terrorist invasion on the news.
No, nobody expected that. That's absolutely correct.
So while we continue to strike ISIS, Vladimir Putin sensed an opportunity to step in and lead, protecting his mass murdering friend in Syria while maybe shifting the balance of power in his favor along the way. Under the guise of fighting ISIS, U.S. officials say he's really just striking moderate rebels who are trying to take out ISIS and Assad. Putin knows he could potentially unite Syria, Iran, and Iraq under his wing and maybe destabilize or diminish the Saudis, ultimately giving Russia more power in the global flow of oil. If only somebody could have warned us about the geopolitical threat of Russia.
A few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. The 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back.
So now we're playing what Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October once called a dangerous game with Russia. And Putin is working the chessboard while critics say we're getting played.
Once more, play our dangerous game.
And so go the contradictions and challenges in Syria. But the rise of ISIS started in Iraq. And to know where we go, we have to know where we've been and why Democrats and Republicans do not agree on how to proceed. That's tonight's Spotlight.
Democrats blame the rise of ISIS on our invasion of Iraq. The nation plunged into chaos and al-Qaeda swept in. General David Petraeus helped secure it with a troop surge and payments to the Sunni tribes for their help. But al-Qaeda in Iraq moved into war-torn Syria, rebranded as ISIS, and grew unchecked.
ISIS is the most successful terrorist organization, Chris, that we have in modern history.
As our support for the Sunni tribes dried up and a corrupt Iraqi prime minister excluded the Sunnis, ISIS exploited the tension by invading Iraq with little resistance. ISIS laughed and danced on the tanks we gave to the Iraqi military. Republicans blame the president for leaving Iraq too soon.
I believe that history will judge this president's leadership with the scorn and disdain that it deserves.
At first, the Obama administration did not frame our fight against ISIS in terms of war.
Is the United States at war with ISIS? It sure sounds from the president's speech that we are.
I think that's the wrong terminology. What we are doing is engaging in a very significant counterterrorism operation.
But as ISIS took off and displayed horrific acts of violence, the administration changed its tune.
Make no mistake. We know we are at war with ISIL.
We are at war with ISIL.
That meant airstrikes and efforts to arm moderate rebels in Syria, which have not gone as planned. And that's why Republicans now say we have to do more.
We have to show much more of an intensity, much more of a drive than the president has shown thus far.
That requires a no-fly zone, safe zones. It requires arming directly the Kurdish forces in Iraq. It means re-engaging with the Sunni tribal leaders that were successful in fighting with us side by side with the surge.
And that's the backstory to the debate that's playing out today. But it does not explain why we wavered in the past. So why did the ISIS invasion catch our government by surprise? Why have we struggled with strategy? And why did the president at least appear to underestimate ISIS?
Retired Colonel James Warshuk held one of the highest positions in U.S. intelligence. He was Deputy Director of Intelligence at CENTCOM, who cannot believe what he's hearing.
That is mind-boggling, to say the least.
More than 50 intelligence analysts at CENTCOM in Tampa now claim their work is being doctored. They say senior officials are whitewashing their reports, distorting and sugarcoating the facts, improperly reworking their conclusions to make it look as if ISIS and al-Qaeda affiliates are weaker than they really are.
That's something that we've never seen before.
Colonel Warshuk knows some of the intelligence analysts who have complained. They used to serve under him.
Do you believe them?
Absolutely.
And he says we all may be getting burned.
It puts people's lives at stake.
While governments may distort information to confuse the enemy, the analysts say in this case we may be confusing ourselves because they develop the reports for top U.S. decision makers, including the president.
If we don't confront this now, our capacity to execute this mission is not time sensitive.
Which could explain why the administration was caught off guard by the rise of ISIS.
No, nobody expected that. That's absolutely correct.
And how mixed signals have flowed through the White House for years.
Unbelievably small, limited kind of effort.
This will be more than just what some people have talked about.
I could not honestly claim that the threat posed a imminent direct threat to the United States. It also presents a serious danger to our national security.
Colonel Warshuk says complaints of distorted intelligence may put some of the president's challenges in context.
It can prevent a strategy from being prepared and developed correctly.
Our objective is clear. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We don't have a strategy yet.
It affects your whole strategy along the way.
Well, the Pentagon's Inspector General has been investigating those complaints. Meanwhile, the drone strikes against ISIS continue, and the FBI is tracking ISIS suspects in all 50 states.
You live at your sister's house?
And that's Charlie LeDuff tracking an American cleric whose words may be inspiring Westerners fighting in Iraq and Syria. We'll have Charlie's foot race, plus changes in the race to the White House when we come back.
Hey, why you running? Come on, man.
Here's the question. Can John McCain help us figure out who could win the Republican race for president?
I say with great respect, That's one of the dumbest questions I've ever heard.
On one hand, he's a little hard to predict. Sometimes even he doesn't know what he'll say.
I am confident with the leadership and the backing of the American people, President Obama will turn this country around. We believe in America. We believe that our best days are ahead of us. President Romney.
But McCain's unexpected surge 8 years ago shows us how the race can also suddenly shift this year.
And we're very comfortable that we'll win here.
On this weekend, 8 years ago, Rudy Giuliani was the front runner. John McCain was 15 points down in an average of national polls, roughly where Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz are here today, just before Thanksgiving.
The holidays are approaching. Thanksgiving.
Wait, was that Ted Cruz or Jay Leno?
You know, the first Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims said to the Indians, if you like your land, you can keep it.
Guess it was Cruz doing a takeoff on Leno, and he and Rubio could just take off as McCain surged 8 years ago.
Maybe there's a good justification for it. I can't think of one right offhand.
Well, John McCain surged after Thanksgiving because the focus of the race shifted to foreign policy. A rash of car and suicide bombs overseas and the assassination of Benazir Bhutto turned the debate to national security.
If you want to be the man, you have to beat the man.
John McCain's foreign policy experience earned him a second look, and voters liked what they saw.
Can you smell what the Mac is cooking?
So John McCain jumped into first place by the second week of January and never looked back.
And what you gonna do when John McCain and all his McCainiacs run wild on you?
Now, the current GOP frontrunners lack foreign policy experience, while the war on ISIS is now dominating the debate. So, based on history, that could cost a candidate like Ben Carson, and it could boost others like Rubio, who serves on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Ted Cruz, who serves on the Armed Services Committee. Don't be surprised if they work into the top tier by Christmas.
Merry Christmas. It is truly a special time of year.
At the very least, voters will know them for much more than bad impressions and drinking water.
I brought some with me now, by the way, in case we need it.
Smithers. Upwards, not downwards, and always twirling for freedom.
Mike Lee, I am your father.
I think I just drank Clint Eastwood's water. Thank you.
All right, while the candidates debate war strategy and the FBI tracks ISIS activity here at home, Charlie LeDuff found an American cleric preaching to the people who want to bring us down. Here now is Charlie and the Americans.
Ahmad, are you really encouraging people to fight against your country? You won't do it? Are you a coward?
There he goes, the ISIS pinup boy. Ahmad Jibril, an American-born cleric who, according to a British security report, is the most popular online preacher in the world for Westerners who've gone to fight in Syria and Iraq.
Because when your brothers in Syria speaks, everyone today needs to shut their mouth and listen. Because they've proven themselves to be real men.
Volumes about it.
The report says Jibril is more of a cheerleader, careful not to directly call for jihad against Americans. But back in '95 he did, faxing a note to CNN after a bombing in Saudi Arabia that killed 4 Americans. It read in part, "American forces must leave our lands immediately or a series of attacks will follow on the civilian Americans. They are easier to attack." What we've got here, ladies and gentlemen, is a real trash-talking Twitter troll. We caught up with him outside his probation hearing in federal court in Detroit. I was out front. He tried to sneak out back. Bob was there.
Ahmad, what name are you going by today? Do you entice young men to join ISIS to fight against your country? If you're asking them to fight, why don't you go fight?
I think that he is going to be a huge problem for the FBI and for the intelligence community. They're going to have to keep an eye on this guy real closely. I mean, who's he in contact with? Who's he radicalizing? Who's he inspiring? And he's going to be a problem.
The dude's not even from the Middle East. He was born in America and grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit where Muslims and Christians have lived peacefully together for a long time. But not only does Jibril spew against Christians, Jews, and Muslims who don't subscribe to his brand of Islam, he's a convicted punk and thief. Along with his father Musa, Jibril intimidated old ladies, destroyed property, and ripped off banks and insurance companies of nearly $500,000. Jabril did 6 years in a maximum security prison on a raft of convictions including fraud, tax evasion, and jury tampering. When he was released in 2012, he started posting rants on social media. And he sent messages to foreign fighters in Syria via Twitter.
Do you think what's going on in the world today from the east to the west and north to the south is by chance? Wallahi, all it takes is the dua of one. One finger to Allah at the right moment. And with the sincere heart, it will decimate nations.
So you're gonna go fight with ISIS? You know you're an American. That make you an infidel?
Jabril was ordered to pay $250,000 in restitution, but he's only paid $3 grand. That's why the feds hauled him into court, demanding to know his finances. Jabril pleaded the fifth, 225 times. The only possession he claims to have is a couch. He won't even say who purchases his underpants.
Do you live at your sister's house? What kind of man sponges off his sister like that?
You know, and what I find is a lot of these guys are real tough guys. You know, they're what I call internet Nazis. You know, they're able to be real tough, but in real life, they're not.
Hey, why you running?
Come on, man.
Come on, you talk like a tough guy on the internet. And look there, tinted windows. Those aren't legal either. Oh, there you go. Bye. We gave it one more try going to his sister's house where he and dozens of other people used to receive mail. Oh, come on, man. Grower said, answer the door.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Well, his sister's house, right?
I have no idea.
Okay, thank you. Is Hadi home? How about Khalid? Broham? Abu? Jenny? Bueller? Ferris? Bueller? Tough guy.
So Charlie found Jabril in Detroit, and he joins us now from Detroit. So what has Jabril been up to? What's he been doing since you found him there at his sister's house?
Beats me, and that's the worry. I don't know where he's at, and I'm hoping the feds know where he's at. You know what I'm saying?
What is the scope beyond Jabril? How many others in this country, Detroit and elsewhere, could be inspiring ISIS as well?
I don't know. I mean, really, the problem here is everything's undercover. There's many ways to get in touch with each other where we don't know.
Which leaves Jabril and others free to do as they choose.
Yeah, which, you know, it pisses me off. I hate to say it that way. That guy was born here. That guy in the yearbook is next to a chick named Jill. He lives next to a red robin. Now, whatever the American foreign policy is, it certainly isn't targeting innocent secretaries and children and people going to his show. So, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, Charlie, thank you very much for your time. Sure look forward to having you back.
Okay, thank you. Good to talk to you.
Coming up, we'll dig into the problem with our drone program and concerns from top U.S. officials that a U.S. ally may be playing both sides. Our drone program plays a big part in the war on terror, but we discovered a breakdown in training, and retired Colonel E.J. Otero, who helped plan the war on terror at CENTCOM, is not surprised.
Folks are not getting the training that they need. They don't have enough. They're being stressed. The drone pilot requirement training, it's a lot more complicated than that, and is not met by the mowing of the lawns on bays.
Yeah, this GAO report shows Army pilots do not have time for continuing drone training because they have to do janitorial work, perform guard duty, and yes, mow grass. Also, an Army review found most pilots in certain units did not complete fundamental training last year, and the Army does not even know the full extent of the pilots' training. In the Air Force, only around 35% of surveyed pilots completed training for all of their required missions. Well, the U.S. is leading the coalition in this, but Senator Bill Nelson and others say one of our key partners may in fact be working against us. We'll show you why when we come back. Former Florida Governor and Senator Bob Graham co-chaired the congressional investigation into the September 11th attacks, but the government classified 28 pages of that final report.
The pot is going to break soon. And without exception, when they have put down the 28 pages, their reaction has been, oh my God, I can't believe that this has really happened.
Well, Graham claims that the government of Saudi Arabia helped al-Qaeda launch the September 11th attacks and helped fund ISIS here today. And Florida Senator Bill Nelson said he can tell us that the Saudis play both sides.
I don't have to declassify the pages to tell you that the Saudi government and many other Middle Eastern governments are quite duplicitous. It is a two-faced game. And this is particularly egregious with Saudi Arabia.
Well, so we're still investigating U.S. policy and the war on terror. We're also looking into homeland security issues. Next week on Money, Power, and Politics, we'll take a closer look at parked security cards that our federal government still can't figure out how to scan. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Money, Power, and Politics.